Within the normal parameters, I can write pretty much anywhere, yeah. This is my favourite place to write. After years of writing, I finally got to build somewhere to write in, and I absolutely love it. You've got a tiny little loo, a cupboard-shaped kitchen, and so I've got everything I need in here. And it's psychologically, just to walk across the lawn and come to a different space to work is very good for you. That said, I do have a bad habit of flipping open my laptop at the kitchen table and then just sitting there for 4 hours and then wondering why my back is killing me. I feel anxiety, real anxiety, if the writing isn't going right. I feel like my life can't run smoothly unless I've got that under control. I'm always, if I finish the writing day and I think, yep, did what I needed to do today, I'm in a good mood, I'm great. It's not that I get grumpy, it's that I get distracted and I get edgy and I need to get back to it and I need to fix it. I'm very driven to complete things. I'm driven to, I want to smooth off the rough ends. If I know I've left it in a place that isn't satisfactory, I just can't wait to get back to it and sort it out. I sometimes play classical music in here. I find I do sometimes listen to an album, but the trouble is if it's an album you really like, you do end up listening to that more than you do working. So, and I do find lyrics can be a bit distracting. So mostly I would either put on classical music or have silence. I like the sound of human voices. That's why I used to love writing in cafes. I really enjoyed being sort of alone, but amongst people. That background hum of conversation I found very soothing. I really liked it. But they did, you know, there came a point where it was just, I couldn't go and write in cafes anymore. It became, which was a real shame, but I couldn't be anonymous anymore. That's why my laptop's always so filthy, because I'll be, you know, eating popcorn's great to eat while you're writing because it's dry. So if you drop it on the keyboard, I am giving the entirely correct impression that I'm quite sloppy. I am, yeah. So yeah, that's an issue, dropping stuff on the keyboard. So I like to eat popcorn or nuts or something while I'm writing. Yeah. I think I've only ever once in my whole professional life had writer's block. That was in the second Harry Potter book. And I absolutely froze because the first book had wildly overshot my wildest expectations. And I was in a state of panic. And for the first time in years, I couldn't write. And it only lasted about a week, but I just couldn't see my way forward. I think I was just so overwhelmed. But since then, I don't think I've ever had a case of writer's block. You definitely have days. I've had days where I think, well, that's a load of garbage. Yep, that's not you. None. But it's always useful because sometimes you need to write it out to see that it's garbage, or you need to write it out just to see that it won't work this way, but it will work another way. You've got to try and you've got to fail. And I think as the years roll by, you become more confident that we'll find a way through this. It's fine. I often think we, when I'm doing self-talk, and that's not the royal we, it's me and the, I sound so pretentious, but it's sort of me and the creature in the lake. I feel like that's a part of me, a weird part of me, that I now have a lot of faith in. That, you know, at 2 a.m, that creature will chuck me something and I'll be good and I'll catch it and I'll take it in the workshop and we'll be good. So I have a lot more faith in that process than I used to have. Yes, it does remain with me. And I excuse my general airheadedness with my family. I mean, I literally, sometimes I forget what month I'm in because in the book I'm in, for example, on the book I'm writing now, I'm currently in January 2017. And because I'm thinking about those dates so much, I literally have to, you know, I leave my writing room at the end of the day and I can't, oh, we're in September. You know, so my husband's talking to me about something that's happening next week, but I'm mentally on a damp Tuesday and Monday, you know, 6 years ago. So you do become incredibly engrossed in it. It becomes phenomenally real to you. You know, I'd lived a huge amount of my life in that world in a way that no one else possibly can. As the writer, it is a totally unique experience. And some of those 17 years had been quite traumatic for me personally. And this was a place I was escaping into. So the idea that I would never be able to escape there again was a bereavement. It really was a bereavement. That said, to be very honest, I was on a certain level relieved it was over. I'd done what I set out to do, and the Potter phenomenon had become something that no one could have predicted what that was going to do, me least of all. I had no idea what was coming. And the intensity of the attention and the pressure while writing that series was such that I was relieved it was over to that extent. And I felt free. I felt I'm free now to, I know it sounds bizarre, but I felt I'm free to fail. I'm free to write what I want to do. If no one wants to read it, that's a very luxurious position to be in. I can just please myself now. It is not advantageous to a writer to become very famous. These are very contradictory things. I think that there are writers who enjoy fame, and there are writers who make an accommodation with fame, and that would be me. And I've made an accommodation with it, and I would be the first to say there are very nice aspects to it. People walking up to you in the street and saying, "You wrote my favourite book," that is a beautiful, wonderful thing to hear. But that said, it was a bereavement. And I know I'm going to feel exactly the same way when I finish the Galbraith books. That's going to be hard for different reasons, because it's been pure joy from start to finish. Well, I think we're living through a really interesting cultural moment for writers and all kinds of creatives, but writers in particular. It is very interesting to consider the degree to which a readership feels they own a property. And I think we're seeing a lot of that at the moment. And there's tension, interesting tension between writers and fandoms. Personally, the truth is, I don't feel I owe anyone anything except the best story I can tell. That is my obligation, to produce the best work I can. So the Ickabog was a unique experience for me, a very, very different writing experience for me. I had the idea for the Ickabog before I'd even published the first Potter, but I didn't do anything with it. But it was one of these ideas that was in the back of my head, waiting for its moment. And then between two of the Potter books, I started playing around with it a bit, and I actually drew. I've got a map of cornucopia that I wrote in about 2000. I drew in about 2000. And then post-Potter, I did intend to do the Ickabog next. I really liked the story. And I wrote 2/3 of it. And then I decided not to. I decided I didn't want to put the children's book out next, and I had the idea for the Casual Vacancy, and I thought, I want to do that. And then I did Strike. And then I just thought, well, the Ickabog's time's passed. So I put this 2/3 of this book literally up in the attic in a box. And then when COVID hit, it genuinely came out of, there were two sets of friends in particular, younger than me, who had very young children, sort of primary school age or even younger. And it was so difficult for them. You know, they're trying to homeschool, they're trying to entertain children. And I was thinking, then I thought of the Ickabog, and I thought I could do that. I could just put that out for free. So I finished the book, and then we started putting out a couple of chapters every day. And you know, it was the most beautiful experience for me. The feedback from the children and looking at the children's pictures online was just extraordinary, and it reminded me how much I love writing for children. I don't think that I've ever found being a writer difficult. Ever. That's not to say that writing isn't difficult, and it's not to say I don't think I could improve my writing, because I'm always, you know, that's a given. What I have found difficult are things that came about as an offshoot of my writing. as I say, I just don't think it's a good idea for a writer to become famous. If you've become famous, then lots of people like your work and have bought your work, and that is a beautiful and a wonderful thing. It was just that in my case, it overshot the wildest imaginings of what being a well-known writer would be. I've said this before many times, but the truth is, my wild fantasy would be that I would hand over a credit card in a shop and someone would look at the name on the credit card and say, "Oh, you wrote my favourite book." That's what I thought. That was the cap on my real wild ambition. So what happened, that took a lot of dealing with, yeah. But that's not about the writing. That's about being a famous person. But I feel like as you go, I feel I have made an accommodation with it, I'm not, this is not a sob story. I'm not, asking for pity. I'm just being very honest about the difficulty for me has never been the writing. I was just very aware that because it had my name on it, people would just publish it, however bad it was. And I wanted honest feedback. I wanted to know that this, someone believed in the book. And I truly enjoyed getting unvarnished feedback through my agent. And I remember, this is not me being critical because I think this is an absolutely fair comment, but very interesting to hear. There was one editor who did not like Strike having a famous father and made that point. And obviously, because I can't break cover, I couldn't say, but I know how important this will be on book 8. You can't say that as a first-time writer, and I am ostensibly in this situation a first-time writer. You can't say, now look, I know a series, and I know this backstory is going to work out brilliantly in books 7, 8, and 9. Who the hell are you to say you're going to get a 7th, 8th, and a 9 novel deal? So, but it was interesting. It was really good to get that feedback. Oh, it was amazing. And the first book won an award, actually, an American award, without anyone knowing it was me. I would have loved to have kept it going. I thought if I could get 3 books out, I wasn't trying to fool anyone. It was just bliss for me for it just to be about the writing and the reader experience and, to get honest reviews that weren't reviewing me as a human being. By the end of Potter, some reviews, not all by any means, but, they're reviewing the phenomenon more than they're reviewing the book. Again, not everyone. Some people were reviewing the book, and I'm grateful for that. But it was just great. And then, we had the very unfortunate incident, and it was leaked by someone who certainly shouldn't have leaked it. And I was actually devastated because it took away from me something that I had got back, something I'd long lost. And that was, it was gone. And it didn't really change the writing, which was great. I think I was afraid it would do. But yeah, I was devastated. I've now created so many characters, it's a nightmare. Because every time I think of a surname, I've used it before. So I have sort of baby name books and surname books, and I'll open them at random and try and fit names together. And there's a name generator online you can go where you just randomize it. And a couple of times, I've never used a name it's generated, but a couple of times you'll see a surname and think, oh, I've never heard of that before, I'll use that. Because yeah, I'm running out of names at this point, I really am. And then you've got to be careful because you use a surname and then you remember you were at school with someone when you were 12 who had that surname, and is that person going to feel offended? And sometimes you forget that you've met someone of that name, and then they write to you and say, oh, I see you used my surname, and you think, I can't remember who you are. I haven't seen you since I was 11. It's tricky. I've always loved the surname Galbraith, and I don't really know why, because I grew up on the Welsh border, and I can't remember ever meeting anyone called Galbraith, so I assume I read it somewhere in a novel, because it's a Scottish name. So I became Robert Galbraith. I liked the rhythm of it. Robert Galbraith is nice, 2 syllables, 2 syllables. I like rhythm in names. I pay a lot of attention to syllables when I'm naming characters and myself. Read as much as you can, because you will learn, you will enlarge your vocabulary, and you'll start being able to analyse what you like and what you don't like. You'll go through a phase where you imitate your favourite writers. That's great. That's like an apprenticeship, you're learning. There are some basic rules. Of course there are basic rules. You write as well as you can, as much as you can. You've got to put the hours in. You've got to keep writing when it's tough. But no one can actually tell you how to do it. You have to find that out for yourself. And that shouldn't be a discouraging thing. That should be an empowering thing. No one really knows how to do it. And that includes me.